Have I mentioned that it's pretty hot in Fairbanks right now? I'm trying to keep from using the stove and the oven, which just heats up the house and makes it even hotter inside. So this week I'm using my Instant Pot to cook 3 vegan meals. If you aren't vegan or even vegetarian, you can add whatever proteins into these recipes that you would like. These recipes are not my own. I'm obviously not a professional chef. I will link them below in the description box. If you didn't see the first video I made in this series, Almost Always Vegan, then I will link it here so you can go check it out. This just talks a little bit about why I'm vegan and why this is titled Almost Always Vegan, because I'm just not an all or nothing kind of girl. The second video in this series is my vegan grocery haul. Now, what I buy at the grocery store obviously is gonna change every single week based on how busy we are, based on what recipes I'm making, but obviously not what it looks like every single week. So the first recipe I'm gonna walk you through is the vegan bean burrito bowls in my Instant Pot.
For this recipe, you'll need oil, a half an onion diced, a bell pepper diced, about 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, half a teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of salt. Of course, with spices, that can be adjusted according to your taste. You'll also need a cup of uncooked rice, or you could even use quinoa, a cup of frozen corn, a cup of your salsa brand of choice, 1 1/4 cup of water, and then a 15-ounce can of beans of your choice, drained and rinsed. Also, you're going to want to top this with all of your favorite things when you're done. So you could use cilantro, diced avocado, or guacamole, shredded lettuce. You could add more salsa on top, or you could top it with some shredded vegan cheese, and that's what we used.
First thing you're gonna do is put your oil in your Instant Pot on the saute setting. Unless you're doing oil-free cooking, then you can use vegetable broth. I'm going to be using oil. With your oil on the saute setting, you are just gonna let your oil heat up for like a minute. Next, you're just gonna dump in your bell pepper and your onion. Saute those for about 2 minutes until they get soft. Then you're gonna add in your spices. 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, about 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and a little bit of salt. If you're using beans that are salty on their own, then you may not want to add salt because you don't want it to be super salty. I'm using pinto beans, so I think it'll be okay to add a little salt. So you just want to incorporate the spices into the pepper and the onion and saute them for maybe another 2 minutes. Then you're going to push cancel and you're going to add everything except for the beans. A cup of uncooked rice. The recipe calls for a cup of uncooked frozen corn, but we really like corn, so I'm just going to dump the whole thing in here. About 1 1/4 cup of water. You could probably use veggie broth or veggie stock also. And then a cup of whatever salsa you want to use. So you're going to incorporate all of those things together. Then you're going to put your lid on, lock it, and make sure the valve is on sealed. Then you're going to push pressure cook and set it for 5 minutes. So now you're going to let your Instant Pot naturally release pressure for about 5 minutes. That's one thing I really like about the Instant Pot is when it's done cooking, it will count down for you. So after it's naturally released for 5 minutes, then I'm going to turn the vent and let it vent manually until all the steam is done. Then you're just going to stir your beans in. Well, it was only a matter of time before I screwed one of these things up. The Instant Pot lasagna is not going to work because the size of my Instant Pot and the size of the springform pan I was gonna make it in doesn't work. The springform is too big for me to set it into the Instant Pot. So something to know, if you wanna make this recipe, you will need a small springform pan, not a big one, or an extra big crock pot. So my plan to not heat up the house is not going to work because I'm gonna have to bake it in the oven at 425. So this is a fail. Hopefully the Thai fried rice will work out better. I am gonna show you guys the recipe anyway, because maybe you have the right things to be able to make this, unlike me.
Okay, this recipe calls for mushrooms. We're leaving them out. We don't like them. You're gonna need oil, garlic, a chopped zucchini, a chopped red pepper, salt, pepper, half of an onion chopped up, and then the spices of your choice. I'm using thyme and oregano. You'll also need marinara sauce of your choice, homemade or store-bought. You'll want 6 to 8 individual no-boil or oven-ready noodles, and some chopped up spinach or kale, and some vegan mozzarella. Now that it says hot, we're going to add the oil and the onion and saute until the onion is cooked, so probably 3 minutes. And the reason this looks like this is because it was frozen.
So after the onions have cooked for 3 minutes, then you're going to add in your zucchini, your garlic, and your bell pepper. I like to use this pre-minced garlic because it's just really easy, but of course fresh garlic would be delicious too. You're gonna cook those for 3 more minutes. Make sure you stir it a lot because you don't want the garlic to burn. Then you're gonna add your seasonings, but you could do oregano, thyme, or I think what I'm going to do is just toss in some Italian seasoning. You'll also wanna do salt and pepper, of course. You'll mix that together for about 30 seconds. Then you're gonna push cancel. So basically what I'm gonna do now is just assemble the lasagna in a regular pan and cook it in the oven. And it'll be a little different than how the recipe says to do it, but I had to adapt it a little bit.
So now to your 1.5 cups of marinara sauce, you're going to add a half a cup of water, which brings it to about 2 cups. And you want to thin the sauce out so that the noodles will cook with that extra water. Then you're just gonna pour a little bit of your watered down sauce, spread. Okay, then add a layer of noodles and break them up so they fit your pan. Then add some of your cheese.
In the recipe, she makes a basil ricotta, and I bet that would be really, really good, but we just decided to keep it a little easier this week. I couldn't figure out how to do this one-handed, so then you add half of your veggie mixture and you spread it around. And then some spinach that I chopped up really, really small because Brian doesn't really like spinach, but it's good for him. This whole recipe is just kind of a disaster. So I think I used too much marinara to start out with, and then I didn't have enough at the end. So I mixed it with some water. Just don't add too much water because it'll get watery. Ask me how I know. Just keep adding the layers. I only did 2, and it said 6 to 8, and I ended up using a little less than 6. Made a giant mess, and now this is going in the oven for like 45 minutes. Once again, I'm totally failing. Cover it with aluminum foil and then put it in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes. You guys, remember at the beginning when I was like, I'm not a professional chef? Duh, we all know that. It's a super rainy day today, and that's the perfect day for some comfort food. So today in the Instant Pot, we're going to make some vegan Thai fried rice.
So you're going to rinse 1.25 cups of rice until the water runs clear, and then add it to your Instant Pot with 1.25 cups of water. This is a super quick way to make really good rice, and I'm really glad I learned it from this recipe. Close the lid and push manual or pressure cook, and cook on high for 3 minutes with the valve on sealing. Then you're gonna let it naturally release for 10 minutes and then do a quick pressure release.
Fluff it with a fork and put it into a bowl, and we will come back to it later. You're also gonna want liquid aminos or soy sauce, ginger, sesame oil, garlic, crushed, I'm using crushed peanuts, but the recipe calls for crushed cashews, and then an onion and a bell pepper. Once we get the rice out, we're gonna push cancel. Then we are going to move it to saute mode and wait till it says hot. It's okay if there's some rice still in the pot, no worries. Okay, once your Instant Pot says hot, I'm going to add a little over a tablespoon of oil. I usually just eyeball the oil, but I don't want it to be too oily. And then we're gonna add in our garlic and ginger. Ginger, I'm just gonna do just a little squeeze. Garlic, I'm gonna do, it says 3 to 4 cloves, so I'm gonna do 2 like really hearty scoops. Add in your peanuts. Now we're gonna toss in the onion and the bell pepper. It's done.